Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast today. This is Andy Martineau, and this is the Connect Method Parenting podcast that is really about way more than just parenting. It's about becoming the parent that you've always wanted to be so that you can put your head on the pillow every single night and think, yeah, I did a great job. And if we've messed up, that means we've repaired. Doesn't mean we're perfect. It means we are trying our darndest to show up as the most amazing parent we possibly can be. So thank you for joining me today. If you've been listening lately to the podcast, you'll know that I keep going into the book that I wrote. It sounded like it wasn't my book that I wrote about 3 years ago, I think 4 years ago. I've lost track. I wrote it and I read it, and there's an Audible that's the perfect version of it if you want to listen to me read it there. This is not the perfect version of me reading it. This is me reading it, pausing, going on a tangent, sharing a story, giving some insights, and recording the video version of it, which is super fun, which will be on my YouTube channel at some point. So that's what we're in for today. I'm diving back into the next part of the book. So if you're just joining me, if you've never listened to a podcast episode before and you want to get the first part of this chapter, go back to the previous episode, whatever number that is, I don't remember. But just the one right before this one, and then jump into this one because we're in the middle of chapter 3 right now. Last time we had to full stop it right in the middle because I thought, okay, this is a good breaking point. We are leading up to creating a get ready for anything plan. I was talking about how as parents, we are confronting so many situations that are challenging with our kids that trigger us that we want to be prepared for. And one of the things that helped me clear back in the day, a decade or so ago, that I still love to do is to prepare for the worst case scenario, to get my brain all the way to the best case scenario and everything in between. And I call it the get ready for anything plan. So we paused last time right before we were going to create the get ready for anything plan. I can speak. It's a tongue twister. And today we're going to dive into how do you get ready for whatever your child is doing so that you can believe in their best, so that you can show up and feel unconditional love and acceptance towards them. And for me, one of the components of that was to create a get ready for anything plan, which really was a game changer. First, when I'm creating this plan, and this is what I'm going to recommend for you to do. So this is an interactive podcast episode today. I really want you to do this work with me. It's going to make a difference in the way you're able to show up for your kids, because half of the battle is us getting our own nervous system in check, understanding what parts of us are getting activated and showing up to drive the bus, as I like to think of it. But if you think of inside out, all those emotions are sitting at the control panel and they're all taking their turn. I, for some reason, started thinking of it as a bus, and different emotions or parts of me are taking over the wheel and driving the bus, so to speak. The emotion that goes with them is fueling every action I take and ultimately creating the results that I have in my life. And so I have all of these different parts of me that want to take over, that want to have the opportunity to drive and be the main character in my story. And what I want to be prepared for by creating my get ready for anything plan is to hopefully get me in the most conscious place so that I can be in charge of who gets to take the wheel and steer the bus. So creating the get ready for anything plan for me has been a game changer. So first of all, here's your first instructions if you want to create this with me today, is write down 3 situations that trigger you. I know, your favorite thing to do, right? They're probably easy to think of. Is it bedtime? Is it when your teenager talks back to you? Is it when your husband walks in the door and sits on the couch and starts watching TV or playing a game instead of helping you with the crazy kids or cleaning up or deciding to help you with dinner? Whatever it is for you. What is it for you that is super triggery, hard, challenging, activating, whatever you want to call it right now? Write down your top 3. So if you need to pause the podcast, pause it and then come back to me. Once you've done that, let's continue forward. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to write a get ready for anything plan for each of the situations that you just outlined beforehand, that whether it was bedtime, your husband not helping out, the teenager giving you attitude, whatever it is, we're going to create a plan for each one of these. And I recommend brainstorming each of these situations first, meaning you're going to do a thought download is what I call it. We pause. I'm jumping into a couple of different tools I use. Daily Peace is one of the tools that I love. It's life-changing. The first step in it, it's an acronym, by the way. The first step in it is the P, the pause. So we have to pause. We have to have awareness. We have to write down all the thoughts and the judgments and the confusion and the frustration and the overwhelm. We need to download all of it. So for each of those triggery situations you wrote down, I want you to brainstorm, download, dump everything out, no censoring, your thoughts about those situations. And then I want you to write down for each of those situations a step-by-step plan that you could keep in your back pocket. I'm going to go into more detail in just a second on how to do this, but a step-by-step plan of what you would love to do in different variations of that situation. So worst case scenario, your teenager comes in, rolls his eyes and tells you he never wants to see your face again. What are you going to do then? Or what if it's just a mild irritation? They come in and they just brush you off and they give you a little bit of attitude. What are you going to do then? Anywhere in between. I want you to be thinking about those different possible flavors of the situation and to be thinking about, okay, what would I love to do that would allow me to stay connected and also stay firm so that I am sturdy, yet also compassionate. Because when we do this work, when things get heated and our brains want to turn off, because when emotions are high, intelligence is really low, all you have to do once you've created your get ready for anything plan is pull out this card that you keep in your back pocket and follow the steps. I had a collection of these when my kids were little 3x5 cards that I stuck in my back pocket. And when something happened, I'd pull it out and remind myself, who do I want to be in this moment? What does my child need in this moment? What boundary, what limit do I need to possibly set? So here's an example. When my child starts yelling at her sibling, so when one of the kids gets after the other child, what do I want to do? Now remember, I'm making this step-by-step plan after I've downloaded my thoughts so that I've had a little bit of emotional purging, gone to the emotional outhouse and let some things out, hopefully had a clearer mind. And we're going to dive more into this as I unpack the book. If you haven't ever worked with me before, if you've worked with me before, you probably know where I'm going. If you've read my book before, I'm sure you know where we're going with this. Because ultimately the goal is to calm their nervous system down, help get to the root of the problem, help them feel safe, help them feel seen so that they can become more conscious and more regulated, come back to their senses and navigate what's going on to the best of their ability, depending on their age, their maturity, what they're capable of that day. It's going to vary from child to child, but we want to set them up for success too. And if we're mirroring back the frustration or the irritation or the annoyance that they're showing to us, it's going to make matters worse. We're going to be in that tug of war that I've talked about. So for me, when I started intentionally planning out what I want to do when my kids start yelling at each other, the first step that I wanted to do for myself was to move in close. And there's a couple of parts of this. I wanted to move in close to myself and check in with what I was doing, how I was feeling, and the judgments I was having to see, am I ready to go on to step 2? Or do I need to do the bare minimum, make sure everyone's safe, which actually is a possible step 2, that then I would stop at that step if I wasn't ready to move forward in a powerful way. So I'm going to move in close to me. I'm also going to move in close to the kids. I'm not going to shout from the other room. I'm not going to assume things. I'm not going to try to give them any directions without establishing a working relationship. So, and I'm adding a little bit here because in my book, it's a little simpler than this. But what I want to say is the first thing that I would do before even the step 1 I have in the book, and I'm on page 44 of the book if you want to look at it, and it's just called Connect Method Parenting. You can get it on Amazon, is I would check in with myself and see if I am feeling equipped and resourced enough to go all the way to the finish line, or if I need to just try to make sure everyone's safe and do no harm before I do much more, because I need to get myself under control first. So let's assume step pre-1, I'm going to say step 0 because it's not in the book, I'm adding it, is that I feel pretty good. I feel pretty calm. I feel comfortable with myself and where I am nervous system wise. I'm not super triggered. I understand what's going on. I know they're doing their best. I don't have a lot of judgment. So I'm ready to go to the next step. So the next step could be, and before I go to that place and go through the steps that I have outlined in the book, what I want to say to you that is not represented in the book is that oftentimes this is a choose your own adventure diagram that I would create for myself. So I'd have branches depending on how I was feeling or how the kids were feeling in the moment. If you're in my group, if you're in the Connect Method Parenting group, go into the response plan assistant and it does all of this for you. It's so brilliantly created. My husband, who loves designing and engineering software, helped me come up with this branching tree that you can click on something, and based on how you're feeling or how your child's feeling, it's going to give you prompts of what to do next. I once had a mom come and share with me, which is so brilliant. She said, I was in the middle. I've had lots of people share this, but I remember this specific moment right after we finished it, and I was hoping, fingers crossed, that it would work well. And she came in and she said, oh my gosh, it was in the middle of a heated moment and my brain was totally turned off. And this was her figurative 3x5 card. She pulled open the app and she just started tapping it depending on what was happening with her or her kids. And she said, oh my gosh, I was able to navigate this situation with so much more confidence. I was able to stay connected and calm, and it just prompted me the whole way. And that's the goal. So if you're in the group, go use a response plan assistant. You can use it in the moment. You can use it to review a situation. You can use it to prepare for a situation. So good. But since we don't have that in front of us right now, unless you want to pull up the app, the Connect with the Parenting app, if you're in the group, and you can start playing around with it and you'll see what I'm talking about. Maybe it's been a while since you've used it. Maybe you haven't ever noticed it there before, which would be such a shame. I want to make sure you're using it. Pull it up, or just go with me through this explanation as I share how I used to do it old school. OG was just writing on a 3x5 card. Not quite as interactive or intuitive as the response plan assistant, but still a great place to start. So if I feel good and the kids are fighting, I'm going to move in close because I need to establish a working relationship with them before I can do anything else. Once I've come in close, I'm not in the kitchen and they're in the front room, I'm coming to them, I'm in close proximity, I'm going to make sure everyone's safe. So I want to remove people or objects if there's any danger. And then once I know people aren't going to get physically hurt and I'm making sure everyone's safe, I'm going to try to establish that working relationship with my children by looking at them in the eyes, getting down on their level, trying to see if they'll smile back, if they'll nod back, if they'll respond back in any way, shape, or form, to see if we can get on the same page. Once we've done that, we're assuming we were able to do that, then I wanted to remind, this is how I'm outlining it in the book. I want to remind myself that my child is doing their best. And if they could do better, they would, because this allows me to stay grounded and to stay compassionate, yet firm. Call it the compassionate alpha stance. It's so important. Once I've reminded myself, if I'm a little off kiltered with that and I'm starting to feel they're not doing their best, they could be doing better, and I've grounded myself back to that, and I'm feeling compassion and I'm feeling confidence, and I'm also feeling like I need to stay in the lead, then I'm going to go to step 5, which is check to see how I'm feeling. Again, I want to make sure I'm feeling confident, that I'm not feeling graspy, that I'm not feeling judgmental. If I am, I'm going to make sure everyone's safe. I'm going to pause myself from doing anything else, stop myself from doing anything else, and come back to this later. Because if I'm triggered, nothing productive is going to happen. I'm going to regret how I act. I'm not going to be able to think clearly. I'm not going to help my kids go through the emotions they need to go through. So some of the ways I check in with myself is to label the emotions I'm feeling and to see if I can sense where I am as far as my nervous system goes. Am I activated? Am I confident? Am I calm? If I'm feeling good, then I'm going to decide if my child is ready for anything else, what's going to serve them. I'm going to make sure we have that working relationship before I make any further moves. If I can't establish a working relationship, I have another path I would recommend that's more of a minimal, do no harm, make sure everyone's safe, because we can't process any limits, any rules, really a lot of any thoughts, suggestions, teaching if we're activated. So if our kids emotionally off kilter, if they have off track behavior, if they can't respond to us, then we're going to need to come back to this later. If my child and I have been able to establish a working relationship, I feel like we're communicating. They want to listen to me. Then I'm going to decide what's going to serve everyone the best in this moment. And I have a whole framework for that called Seen and Heard. That is, I know this is going to sound like a funny analogy, but if you've seen the diagram of it, it's kind of like a hamburger or a sandwich where we always start with C, which is establishing the working relationship. We always end with bridge, which is staying connected. And we're putting the emphasis on the next point of connection. And then in the middle, there's different things, maybe setting a limit, staying with them as they process emotions, things like that, pivoting. That will help us make sure everyone's safe, make sure we're doing what's in everyone's best interest without relying on punishments and rewards as a way to solve the problem. We're really going to what they call in developmental psychology, the antecedent. We're trying to get to the root. We're trying to discover what the root is and help our child become more emotionally resilient and mature so we can have progress around in this situation the kid's fighting. We'll talk about Seen and Heard in part 3, so I can't wait to unpack that with you all. But for now, I want you to just be thinking about how you want to show up when things go off track with your kids. And I want you to start practicing and playing around with scripting it out like a play, practicing it ahead of time, visualizing what you want to be feeling, what you want to be thinking, what you want to say, what you want to do when you would say to yourself, okay, I can't move forward because we don't have a working relationship or because my kids are so emotionally triggered right now. Safety is the priority. I want you to look at the different scenarios and then I want you to try it in real life and know that you are going to have to tweak this often. You're going to have to tweak this a lot before you get it dialed in because it takes time to figure out how to get yourself regulated, how to interact with your kids in a confident, compassionate, alpha way. And this, you all, is the beginning steps of your freedom. I promise you. Now, some of you might be thinking that one of the concerns that comes up for you when I talk about connective parenting is that you're going to let them off the hook. I get this. This was one of my biggest fears when the baby powder blizzard, which I haven't actually talked about yet in the book, but we will get to that story. It's a really important story for me where I saw some things I hadn't seen before and had an experience that had never happened to me before. But once I had that experience where I realized that maybe I was overestimating the importance of teaching a lesson through a punitive consequence or incentivizing behavior by giving a reward. Once I started cluing into that possibility, I was very worried that this was going to teach my kids to be entitled and that I was letting them off the hook and that I wasn't going to be teaching them these important lessons. So they were going to end up being really entitled adults. And that was a big problem for me. I did not want that to happen. And I found that to be absolutely not the case at all. The opposite is true. And I'm going to unpack it for you because it can be so scary to think that the tool that you think is parenting, which is disciplining and telling them what to do and what to do, isn't necessarily the most important job as a parent or impactful like you thought. Now, I know the love you have for your child is unending. I really know that. But how you feel about your child deep down is less impactful than how your child believes right now in this moment. Even though, yes, I have undying love, unconditional love, unending love for my child, but do they know that? Do they feel that? Do they believe that right now? And can they feel that love, that compassion you have for them when you have to give them a limit? When they're being ornery, when they're whining, when they're uncooperative? Can they feel your unconditional love and acceptance when they're acting their worst? This is the question that I began to ask myself. I'd like you to begin to ask yourself this, because there is a way for us to have them feel our unconditional love, or at least us feeling that unconditional love for them, even if they're not in a place to receive it, no matter what they're doing. No matter what they're doing, for us to be able to embody that. I call it the compassionate alpha. We need to have both. We need to have both the sturdiness and the firmness and the empathy and the compassion and the love at the same time. We need to have both of these emotions in the moment. Dr. Neufeld, who I love his work, he has a brilliant book called Hold On to Your Kids, highly recommend it, talks about this state of mixed emotions and how we can hold these conflicting emotions and how having the conflicting emotions is what tempers us. So, does it feel, though, irresponsible to you to fully accept your child when, let's say, your teenager rolls their eyes, or your toddler throws a big fit, or your kids start fighting? Does your sense of parental responsibility think accepting your child's behavior and not giving her a consequence, a punitive consequence? I'm not talking about a limit or a boundary. I'm all for limits and boundaries that are appropriate. But if you think you need to teach them a lesson through a consequence or a punishment, and you don't do that, you're afraid that you're letting them off the hook. Is there part of you that this parental responsibility that lives within you thinks that might not be helpful, that might be letting them off the hook? Do you think that showing disappointment is going to teach your child the lesson and get them to change? I used to think that. I used to think that my disappointment was one of the factors that was going to impact my kids and make them decide they were going to change for good. I'd think, oh, it's going to teach them to do better. But what it really teaches them is that they're not good enough. If we want our children to learn how to be more kind, how to be more patient, how to be more loving, the best way to teach them to be more kind, patient, and loving is for us to be that way towards them. That will teach our child more than any words, consequences, punishments, lectures, stories, however you do it. I remember one time my oldest told me, "Mom, you've told me that many times. You need to stop saying that." Because I would just lecture. Lecture was one of the ways that I was trying to get it through to them, what I was needing them to learn so they would be responsible adults. It came from a good place. It's not effective. If anything, it starts turning them off. They don't even want to listen to any of us. It's similar to the Charlie Brown cartoons where all the adults sound like, wah, 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 wah. That's what they start doing to us, and we don't want that. And again, this doesn't mean that we don't enforce a rule. Connect method parenting is not passive parenting where you have no boundaries or limits. And we're going to talk about how to follow through on rules when your children push all those boundaries later. So don't get worried. We are going to get to that place. But what's going to brilliantly shock your correction-oriented brain, that punitive discipline parenting brain that we think is necessary, is how much is learned through unconditional love, acceptance, and safety without any need for arbitrary consequences or punishments, corrective limits, lectures. You don't need any of that. It's hard to believe that love and acceptance will solve the mess they leave all over the house or the attitude they're giving you when it's time to do chores, but it does so much more than that. Not only will it help them have a desire to want to listen to you, it changes them emotionally. It allows them to become more emotionally mature. So we tend to get so worried about not letting the kids get away with things that we end up over controlling them, causing more pushback, not less. This is called counter will. It's one of the terms I learned from Dr. Neufeld. It's a great explanation of why any of us, our kids, humans, don't like to be pushed around. We have free will, we have agency. And when somebody comes in and we sense them trying to control us, our defenses go up and we push against them. It's a brilliant term called counter will. That phrase is that we don't have that in the language that we typically use around parenting. Hopefully you can start using it now as a way to explain what's going on. When your kids push back, the more you try to control them, the more fearful and graspy you are, the more they're going to resist you. Now, the only thing your kids are getting away with when you overcorrect them is not feeling your love and acceptance. Every punishment you give decreases their ability to feel your love and diminishes your ability to influence and impact your kids. When I got that, I became resolved to figure out how to increase my influence and impact and decrease my need for control and graspiness. Now, let's pause here for a second and discuss the entire idea that we can't let them, quote unquote, off the hook is based on the premise that consequences teach children how to behave, which is behavioralism. If you go back to the first chapter, or maybe even the introduction of the book, I talk about this a lot, how that need to not let them off the hook and to teach them a lesson comes when the belief is that we learn things through external consequences and rewards. So that's how humans learn. It's not true. It comes from this place of thinking that you need to discipline your kids into being good citizens. Do you see it? The concept wouldn't exist if there wasn't a belief that you needed external things to change your child's behavior. Now, let me ask you this. Do you need external things to change your behavior? Is that how you change your behavior? Or do you change because you want to be kinder, or you feel bad about something you said or did? Or you don't like the mess that you're seeing in the house, so you make the decision to go clean it up, or to say sorry, or to work really hard on the test so you can get the grade so you can achieve what you want to achieve. It comes from inside. That's the developmentalist point of view. That's how attachment theory works. It's very different than this corrective parenting that sees the misbehavior and the meltdowns as something to fix from the outside in, versus connect method parenting, which is built on developmental psychology and attachment theory, sees the misbehavior as something you must understand from the inside out, and that the way our child changes is from the inside out as well. And then we have to get to the root of what's going on, the antecedent, which is the thing that happens before the behavior becomes off track. We have to understand that and get there so that our child's behavior, their desire to listen, is impacted in a positive way. So what's your goal as a parent? Really ask yourself that. What's your goal as a parent? To discipline, teach, and train your children to be good citizens using consequences and rewards, or to inoculate them with so much unconditional love and acceptance, to infuse them with so much respect, love, trust, goodness, and self-confidence that they will become immune to anything that will prevent them from becoming the most incredible human they possibly can. Now, if you hear me say that and you're wanting to go back and hear it again, I get it, because there's a lot packed in there. This idea that when we inoculate them with so much unconditional love and acceptance, which again does not mean we let them get away with everything or anything really. I mean, we have rules, we have boundaries, and that's really necessary and needed. But we enforce those rules, we set those limits from a place of unconditional love and acceptance, believing they're doing the best in this moment. And if they could do better, they would. And because they're not able to do better, maybe I need to set up some boundaries for them. Maybe I need to help them be successful because they can't be successful right now or make good choices based on where they're at. So can I help them? It comes from a place of service and incredible ownership as a parent to come in and say, okay, I believe that it's the inoculation with so much unconditional love and acceptance that's going to change them. And yes, that might come right alongside. The unconditional love is what I'm talking about, might come right alongside with some pretty firm limits. And that's pretty amazing if we can embody that. If we can become someone who's a compassionate alpha, their life and our life will change. I'm going to stop it at there today. I want you to just be thinking about that. Go make your get ready for anything plan. Think about what would be possible for you as a parent if you could set limits from a compassionate alpha place. Think about a time in your life where someone maybe had to give you some honest feedback, had to put a boundary or set a limit with you, but did it from a place of unconditional love and acceptance versus a place of judgment and frustration. I hope you have an example in your life with both of those, but if you don't, imagine what it would be like. Who would you listen to more? Someone who's coming with criticism, judgment, and thinks they're going to fix you by telling you what to do and and take away privileges, or someone who comes with a belief in your goodness, even if you didn't show up so well today, believes in your goodness and you can feel that trust in who you are at your core, and then still might have to set some kind of boundary or perimeter or limit with you. Who would you listen to? Who would you open your heart up to? Who would you allow to have impact and influence over you? And as a result of that, what changes or doesn't change? Does your heart become softer as a result of someone showing up and giving you some feedback, or harder? When somebody comes in and is critical with me and I can tell they are judging me, my heart hardens and I do not want to listen to them. Even if there's truth in what they say, I can't hear it. Super hard. But if someone comes in and they have maybe some really hard feedback for me, something that's hard to swallow, but they believe in me and I can feel their trust in me, my heart softens and I want to listen to them because I know they want what's best for me. And they are able to deliver it in a place of love and trust and goodness and self-confidence. That's the person who's going to motivate me. That's the person who I want by my side, giving me honest feedback and helping me be a successful human. And that's what we want to create for our kids. That's who we want to be. A cheerleader, a coach, a confidant, someone they are attached to, that they trust, and that they want to listen to. So that's what I have for you today. Until next time, go connect with your kids, create your get ready for anything plan, and be thinking about who you want to be as a parent and how it's absolutely possible for you to become the compassionate alpha parent you want for your kids so you maintain the relationship that will allow you to have the impact and influence you want with your kids today and throughout their entire life. All right, we'll talk to you next time, guys. See you later. Bye. Thanks so much for listening, you all. If you are ready to learn more about Connect Method Parenting, if you've been listening to the podcast and you think, ooh, I'd love to be able to implement this in my life and with my parenting more, then check out Pivot. It's my 8-week program where we deep dive into learning and implementing Connect Method Parenting so that you can take this information and transform your parenting journey. Head over to connectmethodparenting.com to find out when the next group starts.